pandemic got us into a reflective space and made us look inward to see what we can do for the world at large. As a self-expression coach, I became a catalyst for women and started Vani, a one-on-one coaching program for women on finding their voice, to speak up, to be visible. As a storyteller, I spotted there were many ordinary people amongst us leading extraordinary lives, making a difference to the world, and they needed to be heard. Thus was born You and I with Rashmi Shetty, where amazing personal journeys with their uniqueness and individuality are showcased, a reaffirmation of the fact: open your eyes wider. The world is far more beautiful when we acknowledge the presence of both you and I. The last of the amazing women in this series for the month of March is Janaki Sabesh. Stories are Janaki's passion, performing, writing, and living them. Janaki's engagement with children began in 1995 when she produced an audio cassette, The Learning Train, that simplified the world of numbers through stories and songs. She founded her storytelling initiative, Kitaabo Tales Unlimited, in 2014, aimed at taking stories and storytelling to children and adults. An accomplished actor, she has brought many a character to life on screen. As a successful voiceover artist for cartoons, commercials, and documentaries with renowned directors and ad filmmakers, Janaki definitely has left her mark. She collaborates with Tulika Books, Karadi Tales, and other publishers to take their stories to various audiences and events at schools, colleges, corporates, and literary fests. A simple question from a child during one of her sessions prompted her to write her first picture book, The Jungle Storytelling Festival, published by Tulika Books, available today in 9 languages. Her second picture book, released recently, is titled Party's Rasam, which she has co-authored with her daughter Dhwani and published by Karadi Tales. Janaki Sabesh believes a story told from the heart will always win more hearts. Hi, Janaki. Such a pleasure seeing you after so many years and meeting you. I'm sure this conversation is going to be one beautiful piece on You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Welcome on board. And I am now curious, was the Janaki I met like 10 years ago so full of life, positivity, laughter, and you continue to be the Janaki Sabesh people just connect to instantly? What was little Janaki like and what were your influences?
First of all, thank you, Rashmi, for having me on your You and I podcast. And it's good to see you. I mean, though we are on Zoom platform, but it is still to, talk to a person and not a box, with just a name. It makes all the difference. Yes, I think I am the same Janaki, but the little Janaki was called Janaki Ganesh. And of course, post marriage, I decided to take the name of my husband as the surname. So 31 and a half years now as Janaki Sabesh. But I think inside me, nothing has changed, Rashmi. I still am very chirpy, bubbly. I'm very enthusiastic about a lot of things. I get angry, I get provoked, I feel guilty. So I think I feel all the emotions. But the one thing that has maybe changed is, looking back and thinking about a lot of things that would have happened yesterday. Because we are at a point where, at least I am at a point in my age where I feel a little guilty about something that I had said yesterday. And to follow the Kaizen principle that many corporates follow. I think if I apply that to my life, I definitely want to be that 1% better than yesterday. I was introduced to this Kaizen philosophy, I think a couple of years back. And since then, I mean, it didn't affect me, or it didn't leave me, with a better understanding of myself then. But as as I got into training, and as I got into a lot of other things that which meant I needed to share my learnings, which means I needed to learn, much more than I could share. I realized that I could use that philosophy in my own life. And though it's not, I'm not making a conscious effort of saying that, oh my God, I was angry to the level of 10 yesterday, and I will do it at 9 today. Nothing like that. It's just a reflection at times. And I feel sometimes I take myself by surprise by saying, oh, the same thing that irritated me yesterday has irritated me less today. So then I said, oh, maybe it's the Kaizen philosophy, or maybe it's just me getting into the next phase of my life of understanding my emotions better. I don't think I can understand it fully, but at least it's the starting. But little Janaki is the same. I mean, she was always the same. And I do become little Janaki when I share stories with children, and I just get lost. And little Janaki was always full of stories. So full of stories that I believe my father said that his mother, my grandmother, who in the first place wanted me to share songs and sing for her, do some little bit of drama. And our family is full of, people who think larger than life, and people who behave in a very exaggerated manner. So I believe my grandmother asked my father that, okay, let me hear her sing, let me see whatever she wants me to do. And half an hour, there was no stopping me. And suddenly she calls my dad and say, how do I ask her to stop?
Okay.
So I think that unstoppable thing is what is keeping me going. So I need to thank that little Janaki for being alive within me.
Wow.
And
Unstoppable. That you definitely are. Seeing the amount of work that you have done and the fields that you have ventured into, you definitely are unstoppable. But what were your growing years like, Janaki? What were those influences that shaped the Janaki as she was growing up?
my father was an excellent storyteller. So he would make anything a very, very simple. Um, I mean, I don't even want to call it an event. A simple fact of life of him going to his office and coming back seemed like this straight out of a Bollywood movie. It would be accompanied with action, emotion, drama, and all because maybe he decided to get us something, and he wouldn't just give us. Even if he bought something for us back from office, and something to eat, he wouldn't just give it to us like that. There are many who will just come and keep the packet on the table, but Appa wouldn't do that. Appa would like make this huge thing about it, and and make us feel like, oh my God, he's done so many things, and he's gone through so many hardships just to get us this. Or and my amma, on the other hand, I think she taught me how to listen. I'm still learning. Okay, I need to really become a better listener. But Amma was such a beautiful listener. She would listen to every single thing that Appa said, and with with the intent to listen. No butting in between and say, oh yeah, Sometimes we say, oh, this happened to you, this happened to me also. Nothing like that. So I grew up with this exaggerated Appa's emotions, and an Amma who became an anchor of sorts, just keeping us together. and continuously giving her own sense of encouragement in her own way. My sister always said she was in New York for many years, and there were this, obviously there was no help there to wash dishes and all that. So I believe she would call Amma and say, Amma, I have so many dishes to wash. I mean, it's after a party or whatever, the sink was full of dishes. So Amma would tell her and say, just look at it and say, I'll say it in Tamil because that's the best. How she say, Ivlo Dani, that's all. And my sister till date, approaches every work of hers, and she will tell me, and that's how I would think if Amma was alive today, she would say, oh, that's all. No, I mean, it's okay. It'll go like this. And so that constant push, but a gentle push at that, and a lot of encouragement came from Amma. And of course, Appa was like, yeah, just go participate in this competition, that competition. No, don't bother about prize and all. Just participate. Experience. That will teach you so much. I wouldn't know what that experience and all meant, but there was no pressure to perform at that point of time. And I think that is a very, very integral part of my growing up, because when there is no pressure to perform and when there's a lot of encouragement, I mean, I would mouth a dialogue from a movie and Appa would just encourage me and he would make me perform in front of people. You don't realize that the seeds of acting is being sown there, And today when people say, oh, you are such a natural, I mean, like, but that is how I was. That is who I was and that is who I am. But I think it all began then. So I think it's a happy environment. Of course, we'll have our arguments and fights and sulks and not talking to each other and all that. But that constant encouragement and motivation is what kept me going.
Okay. And with all of this, what did you move after 10th and 12th to study? And how did all of those influences make Janaki look at life differently? Because when it's protected at home as a little girl, being encouraged, and you perform in front of relatives and friends who come in, that's a different feel. But when you start growing up, people become shy. You don't want to display your skills anymore. But how did college and pre-university, college, post-graduation, all of that treat you?
So class 10, there was again, I mean, in those, I mean, I feel very ancient when I see this. I think 85 was my 12th and 83. 70%, 80% was considered good enough. And I wanted to become a doctor. So obviously science with biology was my natural, and since I had done well, I got into the science stream, and you had dissection and you had your practicals, and it was a frog one day and it was a rat. And I don't know how, I mean, now to even think that I would have done that with a rat, and it gives me the creeps. But at that point of time, I think you very, you're all set, saying that you're going to become a doctor. Annual days and all happened. I used to sing a lot in my school days. I used to sing the prayer. So I had this friend of mine. We used to sing duets all the time, and annual day happened. And I don't know, somewhere I think in class 12, I suddenly realized that I'm not cut out to be a doctor. I never said I don't want to be. I was like, I think it's too much of effort, and I don't think I can even, poke a needle and all that. Though I was doing all these experiments and all, and I still remember that scene so vividly. I was going with a very, very dear friend of mine. He said he'll take me. He was 1 year senior. So he said he'll take me to all the universities, South Campus, North Campus, all that in Delhi. And we were in this DTC bus, Delhi Transport Corporation bus. And as we were passing through one of the colleges, he said, now you'll see LSR. Lady Sriram College. And he suddenly turned to me. He said, "You know what? I think Lady Sriram College will be the best for you." And I was like, "Hello, that's arts college and I've done science." That typical behavior, no? You're asking me to do arts. He says, "So what? I think you're very cut out to be, this really vibrant self and all." I didn't even understand what he was saying. Okay, we were staying in an apartment, and I would be there, always there in an annual day play, be it English or Tamil. And I said, his name was Santosh, and I said, "Santosh, what is wrong with you?" He said, "No, no, think about it." And I thought about it, and I don't even remember if I had a conversation with Appa and Amma, but I went next day and gave the form in LSR. It was very close to home. I mean, I had to, I think, change one bus. And something nice, of course, it was a college only for women. And then I said, okay, maybe I'll do, in those days, honors course was very the thing. So I said, okay, they said you can get into political science honors. I said, okay, political science. I mean, like, imagine from science, biology, physics, chemistry, I'm jumping into political science. And I said, okay. And I just managed to get that cut off. And I was there in LSR. And as I entered the college, when I got the admission, and Appa Amma were very happy because it was closer home, and they had left it completely to me, and they used to really, Santosh managed to convince them also. Not even, I don't think they needed convincing, but Santosh said, I think, Mama, Mummy, I think this will be very good for her. And that's it. That 3 years of Lady Sriram completely, I think, transformed me to an even more bubblier, go-getter, never say no attitude person. It was already there. The foundation had already been laid, but these 3 years, because I met my mentor, my teacher, Dr. Meenakshi Gopinath, and she taught me one of the subjects in political science. But then I became the secretary of the Music Society. I was there in every drama. I was singing ghazals. I was running everywhere. I still remember I went to the T-Series office, head, Mr. Gulshan Kumar's house to get sponsorship for one of our events, called Tarang. And I actually got it, and it was one big thing. Arey, Janaki has got it, and let's ask Janaki and all that. I'm like, oh, okay. So, one cutie little neta I became, sorts, and it was always there. And Amma Appa were very happy. They of course, exams came, and I don't know what I learned in political science, but I learned the warmth that just oozed out of every class of mine. I think I started becoming more and more interested in just communicating, being with people. And that's when my professor, Dr. Meenakshi Gopinath, said, Janaki, I think you need to meet Mr. Rajiv Mehrotra. He teaches in Jamia Millia in Mass Communication Research Center. I said, okay. And I met him, and he said, I think you need to give the exam. See, in those days, in 1988, there was no other communication course in India. There was only Jamia Millia, which was a 2-year MA course, and there was Indian Institute of Mass Communication in JNU. So I gave both the exams, and I got shortlisted in Jamia. And then there was I think from thousands, we were about 30 people or 100 odd. And from 100, we were, we got to 25. And there was this group discussion, and there was this interview, and I got it. And there again, a cousin of mine had already done. She was in the second year. It was, I think I was in the fourth batch. Fourth batch. And it was affiliated to York University, Toronto. And I think it was York. And she also convinced my parents that, I think let her go and give. So that's it. I just joined, and I was there. And I still remember when in my final film, after you have to group yourself rehearsals and tours and do the film, my professor, Dr. Shohini Ghosh, she had written, Janaki, you're very good with people. Remember that this is an asset, And I just read it like all of us do, na? Okay. That's it. I think that till date, I hold it very, very close to my heart. Saying that sometimes, you are not able to see your own self as something, but others who are very close to you and who are in proximity, and especially your teachers, your friends, sometimes not even your friends, some random person will also say, oh, you're doing this, is it? I thought you were doing that. These kind of what do I say, random conversations and just musings, and it just I think changes. Now, of course, connecting the dot back, I thank God I did whatever I did, because it made me totally, come out of, not that I was in any shell, okay? Don't even dream of thinking that I would be in some shell. I was like bindas.
That is so evident. That is so evident that you have been thus through and through. But my curiosity now is around the fact that you seem completely Delhi bred.
Yes.
How was the Chennai essence still intact in you when local influences did not shift it?
I think full credit goes to my amma, because see, I was born in Bangalore, bred in Kolkata, buttered in Delhi, got married, went to Bombay, and now for the last 31 years, I'm in Chennai. Don't ask me my age.
I'm not.
No, 29, sorry, 29. Because first two, when we shifted from Kolkata to Delhi, I lost 6 months, because that was June to July and, January to December, the academic year difference. So Amma, what she did was, she asked for all the, class 1 to 5 Tamil books, because I studied in Delhi Tamil Educational Association, which is DTA. It was called the Madrasi school then. Because Santosh was there. Santosh was Appa's dear friend's and colleague's son. So he said, Santosh is there, so you also go. It was like, whatever Santosh does, you have to also do. So I said, okay, fine. But then I had to read Tamil till class 8. So Amma said, no worries, I'll teach you Tamil. And she taught me Tamil. And thanks to her, I can read and write Tamil. Though I won't say that I'm one of those, very fluent in Tamil. But yeah, if I need to do a podcast, which I did during the pandemic for Tulika, I did it in Tamil. We had to do English and Tamil. I did it in Tamil. So when you're pushed, you'll do it. But full marks to Amma. And see, Appa was also a musician. He was in the book publishing field, but he was also a violinist. There was a lot of music. So music is in Tamil and Telugu. And Amma, so we spoke the mother tongue. And we also lived in an apartment in Delhi, which is a mini Chennai. Lots of Tamil speaking people there. And that made, I think, all the difference. That's why the Chennai-ness in me, the Madrasi in me, was never over-influenced by the Dilli Ki Kudi. Dilli Ki Kudi, she was there. She was also singing songs and playing the dholak for Mehendi and Sangeet. It started then. I still remember playing the dholak in all my friends' wedding and things like that. And for my own wedding, in fact, I think the Mehendi, it had just happened at home. And we were, I did it, I played for my own Mehendi and Sangeet. So I think that is the reason. Music, I think music and my, I still remember, this magazine called Ananda Vidan. It used to come with a lot of articles on music, some concerts, and also on film reviews.
Yeah.
So my father used to always, he was not very good in reading Tamil. He would always ask Amma to read. the reviews. And then he'll say, stop, go back. I didn't understand. So when you also, were listening. So
Listen.
I both my sister and I would listen to this. It was always there in the at home, these sounds and these words and syllables. So I think that is why I remained a Madrasi.
And then what happened after post graduation? How did life turn for you? Did you choose where you're going? What happened after that?
My professor Rajiv Mehrotra gave me my first assignment. I did something for Doordarshan. It was called Crisis in Education. I did the research, editing, and things like that. And after that, I got married, went off to Bombay. And in Bombay, I got an opportunity to work with Simi Garewal. Because my professor in Jamia, Mr. Matthew, had recommended me, saying that you'll be a great assistant director. See, in those days, you do mass communication means you have to go and direct a film. There was no other, and see, in Jamia and all, I got a stipend. We hardly paid, any money. So it was like I had to give back, whatever I've learned. So I became the assistant director, and I worked on Mr. Rajiv Gandhi's. It was called The Living Legend, and unfortunately,
It was India's Rajiv. No? Later,
no. And then after the assassination, while we were doing it, the assassination happened. So it then became India's Rajiv. So even till date, when I see my name in the credits, I feel very happy because I got to meet Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, and I went to Delhi a couple of times. So it was all so much fun. No, you get married, go to Bombay, and officially you're being sent to Delhi. So much so that my sister told me, stop coming now, I've just got the room to myself. So that is when, and after, of course, that documentary, I worked on a sitcom called Gulmohar West by Mr. Sridhar Kshirsagar. And that was also a great experience because I had to go to Bangalore for shoot and endlessly stay there, for 2 weeks and all that. And I worked with Tinu Anand, and I worked with lots of theatre artists.
Good names, big names, and wonderful shows. Gulmohar West, I still remember. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
And nobody saw you in front of the camera, is it?
No, that wasn't there at all. It was never in the. It was always behind the camera, and it's always getting the script ready, making sure the dialogues were all given to the actors, and the dialogues were being, adhered to by the actors. And if there was any mistake, what is the take number? Typical assistant director job. But then I think once I finished that, I remember my mother-in-law telling me one day that she said, you love giving voiceovers. I said, yeah. So, because in Delhi, I used to give a lot of voiceovers. I used to sing a lot for jingles. I don't remember, some Upma jingle and all that. And I used to sing in Hindi. And at that time, I used to sing in Tamil also. I used to get everything corrected by my mother. And I would sing in Tamil. And my mother-in-law knew. So she said, come, we'll go for an audition. And we had to take a local train. And she told me, wear a sari. So I said, voiceover audition, why should I wear a sari? She said, no, you're newly married. It's okay, you have such nice saris. So I wore a sari. And imagine my surprise. I walk into this room and the room is full of people, camera and lights and models. It happened to be the audition for acting in an ad.
Wow.
And I was like, I've never done this before. My mother-in-law is like, hello, I'm sure you can do it. And it is because of her that I'm even in this industry now. I got the part. I played the part for a national brand of washing powder. And after that, that's when I faced the camera for the first time. I'd never faced the camera before.
Do you remember how you felt?
Yeah, I remember we shot in some Arik Mill colony in Bombay, and it was. I mean, we had to be in the sun the whole day. I mean, I remember how dark, and I was so tanned. And my mother-in-law came with me for the shoot days, and she thoroughly enjoyed. She was so happy, and till date, when I tell her, Ate, it's because of you that I went. She says, yeah, yeah, you remember. She remembers every single thing. Today she's 93, and I keep telling, I don't tire of telling people the story, and I think that how she just had that leap of faith that I'll be able to do it.
Okay.
I mean, you can ask me if I didn't get the role, what would I have done? She would have pushed me to something else also. Because she knew, because her daughter was singing jingles and all. So she knew a lot of people in the industry. So
Okay.
she just said that my daughter-in-law, she'll act, and I think she'll act and all that. And they just gave me my first.
And when did modeling turn to acting, feature films? How did all that happen?
So then Chennai happened in 93. My daughter was all of 6 months old, and my husband got transferred here. And I worked in an advertising agency, my Goldwire, also a production house, and I did. But then I was not able to handle my young daughter, and how advertising is, and I said, okay, I'll just take a break. And when I took the break, another colleague of mine, he was starting off, and he said, listen, I love your voice, so why don't you start giving voiceovers? And in those days, there used to be something called scratch. So you have to make a scratch, so you pitch to the to the client. So you do the entire storyboard in sketches, and you also have a voice. So I used to do so many of it. So many. I used to be a regular at picture productions in here, and I've done it for HTA. I've done it for Lintas. I've done it for so many agencies. And my daughter used to come with me. She used to have this she used to have this little tea set, and she used to give tea to everybody. So many people. I met somebody the other day, and she said, oh my God, I remember drinking chai from that tea set of your daughter. So things happened, and I started also doing some freelance work, and that's when Rajiv Menon met me, and he said, listen, will you model, act in, and I had done it already before, and Rajiv Menon, big name. I said, okay, and I think I modeled for an ad. And then one fine day, I get a call saying that Janaki, come to AVM Studios. I said, why? He said, Chuma, come now. So I said, I went. And as soon as I entered, I used to wear a big bindi at that time. He said, remove your bindi. I removed my bindi, and he said, like a Kanniga Sri role. I said, what is happening? He says, listen, I'm doing a movie. It's called Minsara Kanavu, and I'm giving you the role of a nun, Kanniga Sri. I said, where is the shoot? He said, Ooty. I said, how can I come? I have a 2-year-old. I think she was 3 years old. Yeah, 3-year-old. He said, bring her along. No. He was like so bindas. So I said, yeah, but when I'm shooting, when I'm in the shot, I'll need somebody to take care of her. He said, bring your mother-in-law along. So that's how it happened. We just went on a picnic to Ooty. There, I just changed into a nun's dress. There's no makeup because it's a nun. And I was given some dialogues. I mouthed the dialogues. We had such a lovely time in between. I think one day we had a break. We went sightseeing in Ooty, and we came back. That's how my first film happened. One day, I think I went for dubbing. That's all.
Oh my God. Okay, it's that simple.
It's that simple. I think, when I say it, I feel that, oh my God, this was like, it feels like a dream now, that the trust that Rajiv had in me, saying that I think everywhere, I think my directors, full marks to them because they know the final product, right? It's there in their mind. and to say that, casting is such a beautiful thing, it's
Yeah.
and it's such a how do I say it, it can sometimes
Make or break a movie.
yeah, make or break a
Yeah.
movie. And I was very happy to have got that. And I still remember going and watching it, and my daughter with me, and we're like, oh, that's you, on the big screen. And my mother-in-law came, and there was a certain thrill. But truth be told, I didn't have any ambition at that point of time, saying that, oh, seeing this, I'm going to get a bigger, role in. It was done for fun. It was just that I trusted Rajiv, and it was just a happy, what do I say, a nice little vacation that I had. And I also acted in a movie. But then after that, I think I got some portfolio done, because I wanted to take photos with my daughter. So Rolf, the noted photographer, he said, yeah, I'll take yours. And we took some photographs. And one news magazine, it's called Pen Money. They said that they would like to take an interview of mine. And they said, you seem to be doing a lot of things. You've acted, modeled, and you're also, you give voiceovers. And I had also brought out my audio cassette by then, called The Learning Train for Children. I think it was in 1995.
How did that happen? You just got an idea and you did that together?
I think one of the studios, I met this music director, and then Inreco, the company. I had a lot of these ideas. I've always wanted to work with children. So I used to do a lot of things, even in Delhi, have a little, when summer camp kind of a thing, even I think, yeah, in Bombay, I don't remember, but in Delhi, I've done that. And this person, I think his name is Lawrence, and he said, let's get together. And I think Inreco wanted, he said, we would like to do something for children. So I made multiplication simpler. So we were all sitting in this learning train. So the full concept to finish was mine. The idea was mine. The songs were mine. We got together some children, Dhwani included, and we recorded them. And that got also published by Savvy, the magazine, and saying that Janaki Sabesh has done that. And I gave a lot of voice for another cassette of nursery rhymes by Sujata, and where I would just link two nursery rhymes together. So that happened, and people had picked that also up, in Pen Money, said, how come you do that also? And this nice black and white and some, I don't think it was color, black and white and maybe one color picture was all that was. And that was seen by an assistant director of Mr. Shankar called Hoshin. And he called. In those days, no cell phone, no landline for it. And they said, we would like you to, come and see our director. We're considering you for Aishwarya Rai's mother. I thought it was a prank call, because I have friends like this who will call and who will say, I'm calling from this and all. And I knew it was a prank call. I didn't. I said, at first I got very excited. Then I said, it must be some friend and all that. And I kept quiet, but he insisted. And then I took my husband. I said, let's go together, because I don't know whether this is, something genuine or not. Went, and it was director Shankar, and we sat on the floor, and still remember me asking, sir, but don't you think I'm too young to play Aishwarya Rai's mother? He said, that's the whole point. I want to shatter this myth that mothers means you should have wrinkles under your eyes, you should have gray hair, and you should wear a certain kind of, clothes. I want to shatter. And I'm telling you, after this movie, it's going to be all young mothers. Actually, true to that, after that, it was all young mothers. I mean, I think the way, now I say, oh my God, I could have done this better. But that's okay. There is some beauty in innocence also when you do. It was huge for me. What a big canvas. I mean, I was acting with superstars, Radhika ma'am and Lakshmi ma'am, S.V. Shekhar sir, Nazar sir, Prashant. Oh God. But it was what a roller coaster ride it was. So much fun. And then, of course, after Jeans, I've done something like 31 films till date. And
Okay.
I never went behind. I mean, I think I've been very, very blessed to have some really good films come my way. And so the dialogues that I have been given has stayed. And when people look at me, it's not like immediately they'll come and ask me. They'll keep looking at me, then they'll ask me, ma'am, are you from this place? Are you from that place? And I'll be very, be very modest and I'll say, no, I'm not. And finally, when I can take it no more, I'll say, do you watch movies? And then they'll say, ayo, and then the conversation. This happens in every airport, railway station, bus stop, whatever. But I think I've been very, very fortunate enough to get these kind of roles that I've got.
Yeah, that's so true. But you know what, Janaki, though you're giving the credit that side, I think every project that you've done right from your first one, you put so much of yourself in it. And I think the return is like I still can recall your mummy saying, your amma saying, Avladana. So it is like, okay, I get into this project, put my best, and that's it. And then I move on without, like, it's the karmanyeva adhikaraste. It's not about the result, it is just about doing it, enjoying it. So what I can sense in this whole thing is the factor of joy that you derive in doing everything, and joy comes from within, like happiness, right? So you are never setting any boundary for yourself, but enjoying every second of your presence there. And I think that translates into a bigger manifestation beyond what you're imagining. Beautiful.
It's so amazing that you say, because I've written this down on one of my favorite books.
Huh?
Happiness is a mysterious thing to be found somewhere between too little and too much, by Ruskin Bond. And whenever there are days when you'll think, what are you actually doing? But then there is this purpose in life, right? This whole thing about ikigai that everybody says, what are you waking up to? I just want to be happy. And it takes quite a while for us to realize that happiness is not watching that movie. It's not doing something outside of you. It has to come. Like this morning, I have this habit of listening to a lot of podcasts, or so today I was thinking that what am I going to be talking to Rashmi? She's this strict invigilator. No, she decided not to share questions. Not even give me a hint. So I said, what is it about me that I would want? But then I said, of course, it will flow, because the questions will determine how the conversation will make me navigate through the. So there I was reflecting, and I said, there are a lot of people who ask you, do you regret anything? Or regret is actually a very, very good emotion, because it actually makes us. I read yesterday, Daniel Pink says that, saying you need to have regrets in your life. I mean, imagine that you don't have any regrets in life. It's like Sheryl Sandberg saying, what will you do if you were not afraid? And these are the questions that keep cropping up within me now, and saying, because as you age, I see that my frequency with which I used to say yes has come down. It's like, what? It's already me, should I really do? But then if it's something really, really fun, whatever happens, I want to do it. So it's somewhere you need to balance, right? Between, do I really want to do? Do I really want to push? It's like, do I really want to do this podcast? But then, no, Rashmi asked, and the fact that she said it's just you and I mean, somewhere, we all operate with that gut feel, right? And we all think about, no, now I'll do it. Sometimes you very strongly say no to a lot of things, and for the life of me, I can't even remember why I said no to a few things. But I'm now at peace with myself, saying that I must have felt something at that time so strong enough to have said no. And it's okay, you can say, oh, I regret it. It's okay. But then have I learned something? If you just say regret and full stop, I think that is where the problem is. You need to say, what did I learn from that? Did I learn anything? Was there something that I need to do better in my life? And
Yeah, no, but the whole idea of personal journeys, why I chose personal journeys as my topic of podcasting is only because personal journeys are a beautiful way. One, there's a lot of reflection, but there's a lot of learning that happens as you start opening up your own journey and you dissect it, like the frog and the rat.
yeah.
There are so many things inside which are not visible outside.
And it's okay to say that all right, I didn't do these things. Um, so today I'm actually, maybe after the podcast, I'm actually going to think, do I have any regrets? What are those kind of regrets? It might actually be very, very frivolous sometimes. No, those regrets, saying, oh, I wish. It's almost like, I wish I had taken that one more pani puri, or that was to die for, or have that pani puri and then regret having taken that pani puri, saying, now I'm feeling so bloated. So it's either ways, the regret. So that's what makes a personal journey so beautiful.
Very right. And I can see that book behind you, Parties Rasam, which is your latest. Can you
Yes.
take us through the journey of Janaki Sabesh, the author? It started with that little book behind that and
Yeah.
then moved.
2014 or 13, I'm still in my corporate job, and Geeta Ramanujam, the noted storyteller, comes as part of a series that my HR head Sudha had organized, saying that you need to learn something that's happening outside of the world. And ours was a very stressful job in corporate. We were dealing with media, entertainment, films. So Geeta ma'am came and she started off telling the story. And between 1995 and 2014, I still engaged myself with good books, which is Tulika's store. And, we used to go, I used to do sing along for children. And, but it used to happen sporadically. There was no, it was not that I was tied up with a particular institution. Then Hippocampus happened, So as these were going on, Geeta ma'am's session happened, and so there has to be someone who needs to do a vote of thanks at the end, formally thank her. I went to Sudha and said, Sudha, I want to say thank you. She said, yeah, no problem. So I thanked her by doing one story on the spot. I don't know what came over me. And then I was like, I have to do this course. This is the beginner's course. And somewhere it was like, I need to get back into storytelling, maybe. I don't know what kind, but I have to do it. And I went to Geeta ma'am's Kathalaya, did that beginner's course for 3 days. And I then realized that storytelling was not about just telling. It was also about listening, the power of listening. So many things. It was more of looking inward kind of a journey for me. And then I said, I'm going to start my own little company or initiate. So I called it, I was in the yoga class and I got this eureka moment. I said, I'm going to call it Golpo Tales. Golpo meaning story in Bengali. And I grew up in Kolkata and I speak the language a little bit. I said, it just sounded perfect. So I made my daughter do a Kuti logo for me. And every Sunday, right here at my home, I said, I'm going to share stories. So first, I had only 2 children. One was my CEO's son, and another was another friend's neighbor's son. These 2 used to come, and every Sunday, I think 11 to 12. Sometimes it would be alternate Sunday because I was also traveling and I would be. So I started with little activities, whatever stories I had, and then the word got round, and some 3, 4, 5 children joined. I went to my yoga class teacher. She had a terrace, and she said, "Yeah, use this place." And then I had a friend who has I have a friend who has a play school. I mean, a school. Okay. And she said, Sundays, I don't do anything. So you're welcome to use the space. And that's how it started. Every alternate Sunday, I at 10:30 to 11:30 was my session. And it was just, again, I mean, I was not, yeah, I think I had a little Facebook page called Golpo Tales, and I said, and so every session I had about 10 or 15 children. The numbers would vary, and I slowly formed a WhatsApp group, and we used to say that this is how. And of course, I used to charge a small fee because I realized that that's when the seriousness comes. And one such session, as we ended the session, little boy comes up to me and says, well, I need an ostrich story next Sunday. So I said, fine, no problem. We'll get an ostrich story. So I came home and, as always, went to Google. Somehow the stories that were there did not appeal. I started thinking and, putting thoughts together and all. It just didn't make sense. Then I participated in a writer's workshop by Karadi Tales with Shobha and Anushka. They were able to channel the story better. They asked me some very tough questions and all that. And after that, I kept, fairing the script and all. And one fine day, I sent it to Tulika. And Tulika loved it. They said, we'll publish it. And so that's how the first book came to be. And Ostru is Ostru is the name of my ostrich friend. And he teaches me a lot on days. And I still perform. In fact, I'm performing Ostru again in Delhi last week of this month. So I keep performing his story, and there's a lot of music in it. And it's published in 9 languages. So a lot of love, and I keep getting love for that. So that happened in 2018. And with that book, what happens is when you get called to literature festivals, not just as a storyteller, but also as an author. So I was so thrilled. I went to Kohima, I went to Itanagar. Somewhere I was called as a storyteller, somewhere I was called. And in between all this, I still had my corporate job. So I was actually quite happy that I was able to balance. But in 2019, I decided that I've had, I think, my fair share of corporate life, and I resigned, and then I decided that 2019 it was, and I said, okay, I'm going to get into storytelling full time. And I said, how will I manage and do it? It is difficult, no, when you have a corporate job and you're used to your salary getting credited and the SMS coming ting. It was, I was learning. I said, I'll give myself some time, but then the pandemic struck and we all got completely. But then I think that's when a lot of, my work started going online. And I decided that this is, you again, make it or break it. I mean, you have the opportunity, you either adapt, you adopt, or you go. The choice was left to me. And I would have gone mad, right? All of us would have gone mad if we didn't have the online platform for us to connect with not just family, friends, but also to a larger audience. Yes. Now the world was there in the press of a button, and it was so beautiful. So, but in between all this, I had just shared a one-liner with Shobha Vishwanath. We keep meeting for coffee, and I said, listen, I have this idea. And she said, write it down, write that book. I said, no, it's just an idea. She said, I don't care, write that book. And I came and I told, it was all about, what if a child, is searching for a recipe, and, it's about her grandmother's rasam, and, it's not their grandmother. And my daughter immediately connected, and she said, Ma, I want to do this with you. And that's how Dhwani, my daughter, and I collaborated in this. We co-authored this book, and it's come out so well, if I may say so myself, because of the illustrations. It's very, very heartwarming, and we've received so much love. We continue to. The book was released on in December uh, 2021, and it's I'm now, because it talks about loss, grief, memories, and the whole quest to hold on to food related memories. I think it addresses all of these in its own manner, and I've I'm so happy that this book has turned out the way it has. So that's
Wow.
how these two. Again, that was a dream of mine. You say that it'll be nice, no? If you say Janaki Sabesh author, sounds nice. There's a nice thing, and the universe will conspire. But I think there's a TED talk I saw saying that the universe will conspire, but then you need to you need to put out that plea. The universe is not going to do that unless and until you not just desperately need it, but also put out that plea saying that I need this, and then the universe will conspire.
Yeah, yeah. What a beautiful way to segue to our segment of the pandemic. You just told us what the pandemic did to the world, and all of us went into reflective spaces to understand what we can do better. And we all understood that we can live with minimal stuff, everything else is an
Absolutely.
excess.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And what were your specific reflections, Janaki, during the pandemic? Because it took us completely out of our space of comfort, right?
So I think when I look back now during the pandemic, and not just life, I mean, there are many takeaways, but then we know the power of three is what people will remember. So the first is gratitude. Okay. I was so thankful that my family was together. I mean, people got stuck in various parts of the world. I had just told my daughter just the previous week, she was working in Bangalore, and I just said, I just feel like seeing you. She said, Ma, I was just there. I said, never mind, no, come, no, it's only Bangalore. So she came, and it was lockdown from 2 days later. And then she just got stuck here. So, I mean, imagine, it was so beautiful that my daughter was here at home. My husband was with me, and my 93-year, of course, she was 91 then, and a mother-in-law. And every day morning, without fail, my mother-in-law would open the paper, which of course had to be sanitized. It would go into the microwave and come out. And she would say, what are the corona numbers? More than us, she was, looking at the corona numbers. So it was gratitude that we are all together. We have food on our plate. We have music with us. We just got together as family, and we started watching films. We had a TV, we had an internet connection. And it was like, it was, I don't have words to explain how I felt at that time, saying that there's so many people out there who are suffering. And I know we didn't know this fellow called Corona and COVID. We were clueless. And every day was a new day. Every day we were like, oh my God, this is one variant. This is what is going to happen. Somebody said wear double mask. Somebody said wear just mask. And then, and then you also realized, oh God, there's something called online. I mean, we used to, but the delivery, and then the window of one Saturday or Sunday, and it would open and you can buy stuff and all. So it was gratitude. The second was believing in oneself, saying that it's like reflecting inward, saying, what are you good at? You're good at telling stories, so go tell now. So the third one was ask. Don't be afraid to ask. So I actually called a friend. In fact, her daughter used to come to all my storytelling sessions, and I asked her, would you like to collaborate? And she said, of course, we would like to. And this was one day before the lockdown, or 2 days before the lockdown, because I just read that something called a pandemic is happening, and schools are closed. So I said, poor thing, the children are going to be, so let's go Insta Live. I was not very big on Insta or anything. I said, okay. And she said she'll come home. And I did one of the stories. I just went live. And after that, I promised that every day, 5 p.m., I'll go live with one story. And then we said we'll also include an activity and all. And these are like early days. I'm talking about March 2020. And the love and the affection that I got for that 15 minutes of storytelling. Okay, there was this lady who I met just 2 weeks back. I, in fact, wrote it on LinkedIn also. I was in the hospital for a family, a relative, and I was wearing my mask, and she had this little baby, and I was trying to make eye contact with this little baby, and suddenly she came to me and she said, "Aren't you Janaki Sabesh, the storyteller?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes." And she said, "Ma'am, I had a very difficult pregnancy, but your stories actually helped me through that." And I was like, "What?" She says, "The whole fun and the way you narrated and all, and now my child, just about I think a few months old, is hooked on to it." And I was like full of gratitude, and I said, "This is the purpose." I mean, where do you get people to see? We do certain things because of instant gratification. Let me not beat around the bush. Storytelling excites me because I can see instant gratification. It's already there. Cinema and all, you don't know. You will meet somebody once in a blue moon, or somebody, unless you have this huge fan base and all that. But storytelling is like immediate. You give now, either they like it or they don't like it. And if they like it, they will go to the children coming and hugging and all that. See, we're missing all that on online. But then just last week, I was in Hyderabad. I was wearing my mask, and there is this little boy who comes up to me. The mother comes and says, "Ma'am, you did this for a school here, no?" He was there, one of the participants. I said, "How did he recognize me? I was wearing the mask." But that's the power of story. He said, "Ma'am, I still remember the good touch, bad touch story." What more do you want, Rashmi? That whatever you're doing is impacting a child, a family in some way or the other. That doesn't mean I'm going to go and do a lot of other things that can. This is what I can do. So my 3 takeaways from the pandemic is that, of course, gratitude, and believe in yourself. Believe whatever you're doing, it will happen. But your intent has to be there. And the third one is ask. Sometimes you need to ask people. You need to seek help. Don't be in this thing that you can do it all by yourself. So if I had not asked this lady, would you like to collaborate, maybe something else would have happened, but then I wouldn't know about that, right? I only know about what happened. So sometimes you need to that Tata Sky ad, पूछने में क्या जाता है? पूछते हैं ना. Sometimes we just shy away from asking sometimes, because you document your consequences. At the most, they'll say no, and you do something else. I have to count myself in the privileged lot. We didn't go through many hardships that so many others. Of course, yes, second wave did not spare us, and again, gratitude, hospitalization of family member, but then we all came out of it, and I'm here talking to you, and we are again going back to work slowly, not rushing it, because everybody is already, people are talking about another wave. I said it's okay. Now the wave, it has to be an endemic, right? And we will learn to live with it. I think that is the biggest. Now nothing can shock us. Of course, there will be those kind of incidents that will happen, but I think it is like you've been through this. I think you can, you'll come out a fighter, because we all learn to adapt and adopt and Nobody will now say that, no, we don't know how to operate Zoom. You learned, you sought help, and you didn't know, you'll go to Google, everything is there. So we are not going to say no to a lot of things. And it made us all, I think, in some way or the other, it made us exhibit our inner grit, resilience, and the power of just staying positive.
Yeah, because my next final question would have been three life lessons. Do you have any life lesson beyond this? Because you've given such beautiful reflections of the pandemic itself.
If I were to sum up the life lessons, I think I want to put my authentic self out. I get bored. I get bored very easily. I have to be like this social butterfly, Titli. It has to go everywhere and do. But of course, that has its own problems. When I'm doing this, I'm like, nah, have I done that? But you learn. You learn to work with deadlines. So Hugh Prather was an American author, and he wrote this beautiful book called My Notes to Myself. And my struggle to become a person. And in that, he says something which resonates so much with me. He says, a part of me wants to sculpt, a part of me wants to write, a part of me wants to theorize. To put all of me into one activity would be to, kill large parts of me. I mean, that's not exactly how he says, but I'm paraphrasing. That's exactly what I am. No, I mean, I can't just do one thing and be happy. I want to do multiple things, because then questions are asked, are you jack of all trades? I said, okay, if you want to call that a jack of all trades, but then I'm the chief fun officer of my life. Yeah, I'm the CFO of my life. I mean, no, but I run an initiative. I choose to do whatever, because I've been there, I've tasted everything, but every part of my life, I have, there's been so many takeaways, which I am now putting into use as a trainer. Because after all, life is a reflection, and the best stories are the personal stories. The best stories are something that people can't Google about. And then, that's when, and if you are putting your authentic self there and you're unapologetic about it, there's something that connects with the audience. Because I'm a firm believer, and I keep saying this, that a story from the heart will always win more hearts. And like Maya Angelou says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you made them feel. That feeling comes only with connections. And how do we connect with each other? Through stories. So I'll never tire of telling stories.
Beautifully concluded here, Janaki. And through your entire life story, your personal journey, because personal journeys, like you said, can't be Googled. And when they are heard and listened to, that's when you start understanding that everyone has a different life, but at the same time, there are connections which are so similar about gratitude, valuing people, and how life has treated you. But in your case, what I can see is how powerfully connections are such an important dot in your life, and you've maintained it. You've kept the electricity on in each of those connections such that the spark is alive, both in you and in the other person on the other end. So, thank you so very much for sharing your story on You and I with Rashmi Shetty. It's been a pleasure listening to you and being part of this personal journey that you have shared. God bless you. Stay blessed. Continue to share those stories that is making so much of a difference to people. Some maybe you meet, so they tell you, and you never know how many more who haven't had the opportunity to meet you to tell you that. But continue to inspire, Janaki. Such a pleasure catching up with you.
Thank you so much, Rashmi, for having me on your show. It's been, sometimes when you reflect is when it says, oh my God, okay, all this, huh? Okay, but we've got a lot to do. It also leaves you with that kind of feeling, and I'm feeling all charged up now. So thank you, Rashmi, for asking me to be a part of your show. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye.
With that, we come to the end of this weekly quest of You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Do let us know if you know people who make the world beautiful. Write in to rashmi.thethirdeye@gmail.com. That is rashmi.thethirdeye@gmail.com. Come, let's explore this amazing world together, both you and I.